Hey, and welcome to the 10th episode of the Reenactors Corner. And you'll basically just have an hour in front of you listening to me and Chris talk about events we have done. Enjoy!
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Reenactors Corner podcast. I'm Chris here with Lasse, and it's been a while since the last time we talked, so I guess we're just going to launch into kind of going over some events that we've done and some current reenacting things that are going on in our lives. So, how are you doing tonight, Lasse?
Oh, I'm doing just fine, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing really good. It was a really I had a great day today, and I got some cool reenactment stuff in the mail. And now I'm happy to be unwinding here at home, and it's nice to talk to you.
Well, thank you, and likewise.
So I guess we should start off maybe doing a little bit of a recap of some recent reenactment events. I know that you went to a big event that I saw some pictures of on the internet. It looked like a lot of fun. And I'm sure that you have a lot of stories to tell because you were gone for a long time. It was like a long duration event, and I can't wait to hear about how it worked out and how everything went for you guys.
Well, do you just want to start with that then?
Yeah, I mean, it must be a long story, and I'm excited to hear it. And I think I mean I've never done an event that was a week long. The longest events that I've ever done, I think, went from Tuesday afternoon until a Sunday morning. And certainly, I've never crossed international borders to go to a reenactment, and I've never had to take a ferry with a truck. So I'm eager to hear about all of that stuff.
Well, as you say, it's a long story. I was gone for 2 weeks, well, 13 days to be exact. The event was just 6 of those days. So getting to and from the event took 7 days, which really was an event of its own because we took our truck, which is a 1937 Chevrolet 1.5-ton truck, which we basically drove from Norway to Belgium on 3 different ferries through 4 countries.
That's wild. What was the event called that you went to?
The event was called September Odyssey 2019, and it was hosted by the Second Armored in Europe. They're called. It's a bigger organization that's it's worldwide, and they, as the name implies, they reenact the Second Armored Division, and they've done trips like these ever since 1999, so this was also like a 20-year celebration for them. And they basically do trips like this that are specific to the place they go to at the time of the year they're held. And we as Germans are just there more as a sideshow, kind of, but we're still having an event of our own.
Are there more like Allied military portrayals at this event than German portrayals?
Yes. The Americans at September Odyssey were 250 people with 80 vehicles, whereas we were a mere 60 Germans with 6 vehicles.
That sounds like a good ratio. We have done some public events here in America where we wound up having like maybe more Germans than American or Allied portrayals, and like the public don't like that, and I don't like that. It sounds really cool. I'm glad that you had more of like the winning side represented.
Yeah, totally. What's also cool about the American side during these trips is that, unlike other military vehicle convoys, that just gather up as many different vehicles as they can. These guys will actually say no to vehicle owners because their vehicle does not fit it. What is it called? TOE, Table of Organization, for the 2nd Armored Battalion at that specific time during the war. So you have 80 vehicles that's set up specifically as they would be in the 2nd Armored Division at that time.
That's incredible.
And all vehicles are marked for the 2nd Armored.
Wow, I love it.
It's really well done. And what they do, the Americans, is basically they have a longer event. I think theirs were 10 days or 11 days. And they do like different parades in cities, memorials, talk to veterans, etc., etc. They're more of a memorial tour, but also a immersion tour because they still sleep in foxholes and everything like that. So we, as the Germans, are more like a sideshow to help them. Like during public battles, for example, we helped the 2nd Armored complete a full memorial event, sort of.
Before the event, when you found out about it, when you guys were talking about going, what was it like when they told you like what kind of gear or uniform you had to wear, or like what your impression was going to be? I mean, did they have that all laid out for you? Was it very specific, or how did that all work?
I think we need to respool back to 2016 for this, actually.
Okay.
Because the German side is organized by something that's called the European Axis Coalition, which is basically like an umbrella organization for several good quality German groups to attend events like this. And they do cooperation with the 2nd Armored in Europe. And they were going to have their CCB Camo Cobra Bocage event in Normandy in July 2017, I think it was, and we wanted to attend that, and EAC was willing to accept us, and they did have a set paragraph of equipment and stuff. But what should I say? Back then, it was kind of full of reenactors and stuff. It felt more like it was just rushed out.
Yeah. Well, what about this year? Like, you guys are just invited to go because your unit is a part of this coalition?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Once you're in, you're basically in, sort of. Back then, you had to take good photos of your kit, send them in, be approved, etc. But it wasn't any problem, really. And this time, we didn't have to, even though we brought some new guys as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds like a great system. Once we have similar things here in America. Like events that I might be involved with. I'm happy to have a unit come, even if I don't know the individual guys from the unit. If I know who is in charge of it and what they're about and how they do things, then I can be excited to reenact with them, even if they're people that I've never met before.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good system. Now, of course, the guys running the EAC, European Axis Coalition, they are not English native speakers, and they're from countries where not everybody learns English. So communication can be kind of rough at times, but it works out.
Yeah, I think I can imagine what you're talking about. And I think between Google Translate and I don't know, there's ways to do it. Sure. And I'm glad you were able to make that work for yourself. Sounds like you guys had a good time. What was it like traveling with the truck? How many of your guys went to the event?
We were. I'm so unprepared with such basic questions.
How do you not know? You were with these people for 2 weeks.
No, we're with them just for 1 week, actually. We were 5 guys who went to the event. 3 guys took the plane down.
Okay.
And I was stuck with the unit co-commander Nicholas in a truck on boats for 2 weeks. And we're still friends.
Nice. What was it like being on those boats with the truck?
Ah, everybody, absolutely everybody has questions about it, which is kind of cool.
Sure.
Well, I mean, the thing is that for the past, like, for the maybe 4 or 5 weekends prior to the departure, we were working like crazy to get the truck up to scratch by fixing numerous issues. And for example, getting a canvas roof on the back of the truck up. And all of that was finalized just 18 hours before we actually went on the boat.
Wow.
So it was really, really stressful. We were leaving Monday afternoon, and we finished Sunday evening. And I hadn't packed anything because I was so busy with the truck. So when I got home Sunday evening, I just threw all sorts of kit in the bag and just hoped to God I had everything. Only
Did
thing
you?
I missed was the pipe, actually.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's good. Good for you.
Thank you. Sadly, the my mess tin hadn't been emptied since the previous event, which was a month earlier, maybe more.
What was in there? What was left over in there from the previous event?
I don't know. It tried to speak to me.
It was like a bulk food. It wasn't like wrapped up food. It was like the remains of a stew or something.
Yeah, because we
Wow, I
had
love it.
vegetables with us.
Nice.
So that's a whole other story. It was a chemical bomb. It's
I've done that a few
if
times.
we were stopped in customs, we would be taken to a military police station.
I believe it.
Monday afternoon, we went down to the town of Larvik, not to be misinterpreted, not to be fuck that. Went to the town of Larvik, and that's where the truck was. We've been working on it. We packed it up. The thing is that the other guys flying had left all their kit with us to Easter flying, which was really convenient for them because they went for a week-long event with just a small backpack on the plane because the
Yeah, that
truck can
sounds
take
sounds
everything.
sounds great for them.
Oh yeah, they loved it. So we took all their kit, our kit, the kit for everybody, like jerry cans and boxes and alcohol and whatnot, and we stashed that in on the truck bed. That's a good thing with a truck; it has so much room. And we put the canvas roof there, and we took a blue tarp and just wrapped it over it, and then we drove. Truck started fine. We went to the ferry port, which is a pretty nice size ferry going to Denmark. And I don't know, it maybe has a capacity of 300 vehicles. So as we're in the line, many people were like, whoa, that's a cool truck. Came up to us,
Nice.
had questions, etc. The customs came, which is weird because this was the Norwegian customs and we were going out of Norway. But she asked, like, hey, that's a cool truck. What are you guys doing? And we're like, oh, we're going to shoot Americans. She was like, oh, so cool. Do you have weapons with you? And I say, no, we get it down there. And yeah, she had more questions about the truck, really, than what we're carrying.
Cool.
We drove onto the ferry. More people asked us stuff. Fast forward 5 hours of boredom, we arrive in Denmark, where what did we do? We refilled the truck, and then we drove on the highway. We actually got a vehicle up to 85 kilometers an hour.
How fast is that? Is that like a
That is
it's like a highway
53
speed?
miles per hour.
Okay, cool. That's fast.
Yeah, it didn't sound good, so we didn't do it for long.
I can imagine.
We usually held like 45 miles per hour, which is still pretty fast. We were basically going like maybe 30 miles to a next port, and halfway through we just stopped at a parking lot and we slept on the bed of the truck for the night because then was already night. And then we woke up the next morning and kept on driving to the next ferry. In that dockyard, you also had the 3 huge frigates of the Danish Navy, which was cool to look at. That's also where we had the first issue with the truck, because we arrived too early for the the ticket booth. So, and this is a ferry that goes to Gothenburg in Sweden, by the way. It's a smaller one. But so we stopped the vehicle, and as the ticket booth opened and we were going to start the truck, it did not start at all.
Wow.
And this is if we miss that ferry, we're missing everything.
Wow.
So we had a bit of problem. We started like partially taking apart the carburetor and everything, because it seemed like the carburetor was stuck and didn't get fuel down into the engine. And the ticket booth lady actually came and asked if we wanted some help. We said, nah, we're good. And we got it to start like 30 minutes later.
That must have been so nerve-wracking.
Nicholas was more nervous than me.
Well, do you guys both have like mechanical know-how? Because I would have just been like, I don't know anything about vehicles. You know, I would have just been dead. That would have been it for me.
Well, that's what makes this an adventure, because Nicholas does not know anything about the vehicles. Like, he knows what the engine is, and the wheels, and the steering wheel.
Yeah.
But not much else.
That sounds like my knowledge level.
I know a bit more. My father has been doing AM cars, like old AM cars, hot rods and everything for a very long time. So I picked up a few tips here and there, but I'm still not skilled. So I have learned a hell of a lot during the trip. But yeah, we had quite a few tools with us. We had spare parts with us. So we managed.
Cool.
So we went onto the ferry. More people talked to us. And then 4 hours later, this was probably before noon, we got to Gothenburg. And we had like 8-9 hours to kill. So we went to a large commercial district and just hung around, reorganizing kit. I unpacked my stuff to see what I actually had with me. I got new boots, the Nest of boots, which I had no time to do anything with. So I blackened the Nest of boots there, as well as greased them up. We also greased up the truck actually with a grease gun, and I mean, regular service stuff.
Cool.
And we also ate food at a fast food restaurant because it's a holiday.
Nice.
We also did a bit of painting because the truck at that time was all dunkelgelb. And during the very hasty work we had that Sunday, we repainted a bit that was missed from the new hardware we installed on the truck. And then we drove to the port. And this is where the story gets interesting, because the 2 previous ferries we've done are regular passenger ferries. The next ferry we're going on is a container ship, which is just for cargo, and they have a maximum passenger capacity of 12 people.
Wow.
They since it's Gothenburg, the Volvo factory is in Gothenburg, so the container ship takes a hell of a lot of brand new Volvo trucks, excavators, like regular cars, everything, as well as several hundred different containers. This isn't like a container ship that you lift containers on, they drive them on. It's a roll-on, roll-off ship, as they're called. And that would take us directly to Ghent in Belgium.
How was the ferry ride?
All the workers on the ship were looking at our truck, and as soon as we got out there, we're like, "Oh, it's a weird experience, really." As we got up to the passenger area, there's basically a small, narrow hallway with your cabins on the right side, and you have a passenger lounge area where there's some food always served and some coffee and tea. The food is just regular bread, some jam, Scandinavian stuff, really.
Sounds like a fun Scandinavian experience.
It was so weird. And as we got up there, we dropped all our stuff in the cabin, and now it's like maybe 11 a.m. p.m. 11 p.m. It's almost midnight, so it's late, and we're kind of tired after having traveled in 6 o'clock in the morning from another country, and we basically dropped our stuff in the cabin. Me and Nicholas got a shared cabin. And we walked up to the lounge to get some food. And there's 2 passengers already there. And I don't know how to describe this, but it's like the perfect stereotype of a British explorer. Imagine a guy in his 60s with like an insanely stereotypical British accent talking about all of his endeavors and explorations throughout his lifetime, like he's Indiana Jones or something. And he talks about the craziest stuff as if it has absolutely no interest whatsoever. It's like, yes, I remember once we were on a sailing ship through Trans-Pacific Ocean because we were following the Polynesian route, and we had a young lady there. She was probably 27. Her name was Emily, and she caught malaria. She was a neurosurgeon. But anyways, as we arrived, and it's like he kept on going like that to the Swedish guy. And throughout the 36 hours the journey or the voyage took, that guy would just talk about the craziest stuff you could ever imagine. And like, he's seen everything. It's crazy. And thankfully, both me and Nicholas managed to avoid talking to him because he would just never stop.
Sure.
It was fun enough to listen to him. So yeah, we're stuck in this small passenger quarters getting meal 3 times a day. Pretty good food, actually. But there's absolutely nothing to do. Nicholas and I brought a board game, a Norwegian board game that's a strategy game about the invasion of Norway. Let's say we have played that enough to never touch it ever again in our lives.
Sure.
I lost all the time. And there's absolutely no stores at all there because it's not a passenger vessel. But then comes the what do you call him? He's the like the head of the kitchen. He had a fancy ship term. I'm not a naval person.
Yeah,
but he's like
the head of the galley. I mean, they've got all these weird naval terms. I don't know what they are.
And he came and just announced himself and like, do you guys want to go to the shop? And Nicholas and I simultaneously, there is a shop? And he said, yeah, of course. So we follow him through the kitchen into the storage area of his kitchen to a back room of the storage area where he has set up a shop. And it felt so illegal because he just walked behind a table with a small metal box on it that was his till. And he said, it's cheap, he only accepts cash, and it does not matter what currency the cash is.
So, wow, that's wild.
I mean, you could buy stuff for pretty cheap money.
What kind of drugs did he have in there? I mean, what are we talking about here?
I mean, he only had like regular stuff, but he had like bulk loads of it, like candy, beer, whiskey, everything. But we didn't have any cash because we didn't think that there was a shop. So lesson learned to the next time, if that galley officer, or whatever his name is as crazy, which it turned out he was. So we arrive in Ghent 3 hours late, doesn't matter. We arrived on a Thursday. The event didn't start until the Saturday, but we were going to be there on Friday evening together with some other people just to be there, basically. We're in northern Belgium, which is the Flandern, as it's called, where everybody speaks Dutch. I mean, we got out of the port pretty easy. We had nothing to do in Ghent. We're gonna meet up with a friend of mine in Aalst, which is a city between Ghent and Brussels. He's an old online friend of mine that I met once before. We're gonna spend the night at his place. And so we met up with him probably at around noon. This is where I also should point out that for all the American listeners, that the truck is a manual transmission, unsynchronized gearbox, which requires double clutching as well. And as we arrived in Aalst at just before noon, I suppose, I've been driving on the Belgian roads for like 2.5 hours, and it's like I've been traveling a lot through the Netherlands, Belgium, and France, and those countries. And every time I forget how bad the roads are. It's like an underdeveloped country. But I suppose Congo has better roads.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine.
I mean, it's just something with how they build them. It's like they just build them without thinking.
Well, it's like that's part of the medieval charm of Europe, right? I mean, that's like a bonus.
But these are modern roads, but they have like huge speed bumps in the middle of nowhere that's poorly marked, and the asphalt changes color every time, and everything is just weird. And they use a lot of concrete blocks that aren't even level.
Wow.
It's a nightmare. But anyways, we arrived in Aalst, met up with my friend. At this time, we also found out that the alternator of the truck did not charge anymore, which is an issue.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So as soon as we got to him, he saw the truck. He was like, wow, a German truck, that's so cool. And because he's a World War II freak as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't know him. I decide to take out the alternator from the engine, open it up. I see a wire that's been disconnected. We also worked on this alternator 2 weeks before, so I contacted the guy who worked on it to like, where does this wire go? And he said where it goes. I resoldered it because we brought a soldering iron. Good thinking, Lasse.
That's awesome.
We basically soldered it on his balcony, like my friend's balcony, and we put it back in, and it worked, and it's been working ever since.
Wow, you guys are really lucky that you were there and that you have that expertise.
Yeah, well, soldering wires aren't difficult.
Sure, but like to know what has to be reconnected or just to be able to troubleshoot an alternator, I mean, that's a real important skill for anybody who wants to have like a World War II type vehicle, you know?
Yeah, that's true. But anyways, we had dinner with the guy at a local Belgian tavern. It was fantastic. We went back, talked on his balcony about World War II till the sun went down. We went in. That's when we saw the biggest fucking spider I've ever seen outside of a zoo. That was huge, like a big, big spider on his wall. And I hate spiders. And he did as well. And Nicholas, a little bit. But we managed to kill it.
That spider was probably there to help you. And you repaid it by killing it.
How can it help me?
Could have been a cool mascot on your trip. He wanted to go to do the reenactment.
Hell no.
He was all ready. He had his kit all set. Oberge Spider.
Well, he was big enough to reenact Goering.
All right.
But anyways, the morning after, we drove off with the truck down to the meetup point was in a small village called Rumes, which is literally 2 meters away from the French border. So we have to cross the country, but Belgium is a very small country. By a car on the highway, that drive would take 45 minutes tops.
Wow.
We avoided the highways because Belgian highways are quite high speed, and I don't want to risk anything with the old truck not going as fast as it should.
Sure.
So we took the back roads, better view anyways. We drove past some memorials here and there, which is always cool. Rumes is a small town next to the town of Glanerie. I suppose that's how you pronounce it. And it's actually the first town that the 2nd Armored Division liberated from Belgium in 1944.
That's cool.
So it was a good starting point for them to be at. As we were driving to the address given where we were supposed to meet up in a field, we came to, what should I say, a classical Central European small village that consists of like 3 farmhouses and that's it, and a small road. And we don't see the field, so we keep on driving, and bam, we're in France. Like we just crossed the border. The road became ever so slightly worse, and there were suddenly no houses, just fields. No sign or anything, but my GPS said that we're now in France. So I
It's crazy.
turned around and drove back to Belgium, and you see the few houses, and that's basically the border. So, but then when we come back to Belgium, I suppose, a guy that we know from the European Axis Coalition was there to wave us up to the field we were supposed to be at. So we drove up there. There's only one car that has arrived. So we talked to them. We started emptying the truck, organizing everything, and getting it ready to get camouflage. Because we wanted to camouflage the truck, and what better way to do it in a Belgian field?
Nice.
So, yeah, that was the trip down there.
So what did the event consist of? You guys were like in vehicle convoys. How far did you guys
We
travel as part of the
traveled
event?
approximately 150 kilometers. It is.
That's great.
Well, I mean, on a straight road, 150 kilometers takes you through Belgium 5 times or something. It's a ridiculously small country. But we basically went from the village of Rumes, which is close to the French town of Lille, and we went west to southeast of Brussels, east of Charleroi, if you're really familiar with Belgian geography. But the traveling was split up in 6 different days. We had 2 longer traveling days where we traveled a substantial amount of distance. We also followed the original route, and as much as possible follow the original roads as well that the 2nd Panzer Division did as they retreated throughout Belgium, with the 2nd Armored Division chasing them down, basically. Wow.
What did you guys encounter a lot of like local people?
Oh, lots of them. Since the event is a rather big memorial event, everybody along the route had been notified like several months ahead. So everybody was standing out to take pictures of the American convoy. We drove first, so it was funny because you see the locals, they're like, oh, here the American comes. And they're like, yay! And then you see it's the Germans, and they're like, which is always fun.
Did you get any negative reactions from people?
No.
Wow, that's really cool.
Everybody, well, I mean, we didn't have too much contact with the public, but we didn't get anything negative.
That's really cool. How many public battles did you guys participate in?
I lost count at number 9.
Wow.
Maybe we had 11, 12, 13.
So you're doing multiple public battles for spectators per day?
Yeah, some days were very quiet. Maybe one day we didn't have any at all. But then suddenly the schedule had squeezed 5 battles into one single day. And I mean, public battles are generally shit. So I mean, the battle aspect of this trip wasn't as good. But we had a few, what should you say, ambushes of specific parts of the second armored convoy. That was really cool.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Were you guys sleeping like in underneath the truck or in the bed of the truck, or what were you guys doing for sleeping?
we erected an 8-man zelt that we were
Nice.
supposed to sleep in. But the problem is, when you first enter an 8-man zelt, because you're a bit tired, so you go to bed early, you're like, oh, there's lots of room here, so you lay down kind of stupid. And then the next person does that, and then there's only room for 6 people in it. And the
Yeah.
2 others don't even want to bother waking up because they stayed up far too late and just want to go to bed, so they sleep on the truck bed instead. So, I mean, people slept everywhere, which I suppose is realistic.
Yeah, that's probably how it was to some extent. I mean, obviously, in the reality of war, I think probably a lot of people were going to sleep at the same time when they were ordered to or whatever, but I'm sure people slept in whatever kind of accommodations they could find, certainly.
Yeah.
There must have been reenactors from all over Europe at the event, probably some from North America too, right?
Yeah, we had 2 Americans on the German side. You know them both. I'm not going to go with the full name, but
Sure.
it was Graham and Jesse.
Nice.
First time I met Jesse, he was really cool.
They must have had a lot of fun.
Yeah, Graham also joined us on the Normandy event 2 years earlier. But this was Jesse's first time, I think. I didn't see him in Normandy, at least. There's so many
Cool.
faces, you can't talk to everybody.
Oh yeah, no, I know how it is. It can be very awkward. Sometimes I'll meet somebody and I'll say nice to meet you, and I realize I've probably been within 10 feet of this person on a dozen occasions, but never really got a chance to talk to them. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It was funny with Jesse because after the first day of a lot of traveling, we drove for 5.5 hours, I think, on the horrible shit underdeveloped roads of Belgium. This is also southern Belgium, which is the French part of Belgium, which is basically the poor part of Belgium that doesn't function, and it shows.
Listen to your like Northern European like chauvinism coming through here.
Is it so apparent?
Well, I mean, you're talking about these places like you were in hell.
All right. Yeah, we went to. We've been traveling, as I said, the longest traveling day, 5.5 hours, many kilometers, and we're stuck in this place. I don't know where it is actually at all. We were next to a very large zoo. I heard that's called Paradise. So I suppose that's an easy way to find out where we were in Belgium. But we're in this small village next to it, and we were camping in the bottom of a hill just outside of a town. And we had the trucks parked on top of the hill because they most likely couldn't make it up the hill if we drove down. So I was standing next to the truck. I think we're fixing food. It was starting to get dark. And then Jesse and some other guys come and they're like, hey, we're going to go steal some potatoes. Don't tell the officers. And I'm like, steal potatoes? If you don't tell me what you're doing, I'm going to call the officers. They're like, nah, there's like a potato field just across the road and it's potato season, so we're going to get potatoes. And that's when I told Jesse, hey Jesse, bring me 5 potatoes. I'm going to make fries.
I love it.
And he's like, huh? You're going to make fries? I want to see that. So he gave me potatoes. This is also one of the very immersive moments we had during the event because we're going to scout out the American camp. And we knew it was on the other side of the village, but we didn't know where. Supposed to be a American camp somewhere. So we removed all of our equipment. We took our rifle and cap, and we went into the village on a Spätrupp mission. We walked in the ditch to minimize the sounds. Then we got to the town. There were no grass patch to walk on, so we actually removed all our boots and walked just in our socks throughout the entire village, which was very immersive. Went through like the backyards of people's places and stuff.
That sounds so cool.
It was. 2 hours later, we still couldn't find the American camp, so we went back. And then when we came back, we saw another road, and we're like, hey, why don't we try that one? We're already going to get too little sleep, so yeah, we went there. And suddenly we hear, like, we're walking. This is close to our camp again, and suddenly we hear some bushes rustle next to us and some voices. And we're like, oh, fuck. The Americans are here. And then out jumps our lieutenant, the lieutenant. We're like, shit, now we're in trouble. But he's like, hey, there's Americans up here. We need to go quiet. Follow me. So we follow him up to the church, actually. And the church had like this very narrow walkway bridge up to it. That's like super tiny. I was super scared because everything was dark. You could just see the silhouette of the old medieval church through on the night sky. But anyways, we didn't see any Americans, so we went to bed. It was lame, but immersive. Immersion often comes when things don't happen.
Well, that little bit with the medieval church illuminated in the night sounds so atmospheric to me. Sounds like a dream situation. Sounds so realistic in a sense, you know?
Yeah. And you're like, they have seen Americans up by the church, but now they're not there.
That's really cool.
I mean, the next day we drove even longer. I think we drove for 7 hours. Lots of back roads, lots of low speed, so it takes a while. Although the distance travel isn't much, it takes a long time.
You were up in the front of the truck, I assume?
Yeah, I was actually driving the truck.
Wow, that's cool. What was it like for the guys in the back? Were they complaining about hours of sitting on benches going over bumpy old roads?
Yeah.
I believe it. I believe that.
We actually had the only truck with benches in the back, so our guys had at least some comfort. They also padded the benches with the wool blankets.
That sounds nice.
But one of our guys complained about the suspension of the truck and how well he feels every bump in the road. How did he explain? He said that he's sitting there, almost falling asleep. Then suddenly the entire world shakes and rocks, and it feels like the entire truck is just going to fall apart. So he suddenly looks back on the road to see what will hit, and there's a small pebble in the road.
Yeah, I relate to that. My old group used to have trucks, and it was a teeth shattering experience for sure.
Yeah,
on a gravel road. Yeah.
and also in the front of the truck, me and my co-driver are basically sitting on a cushioned with like huge bed springs in it seat, and so we have more suspension in the seat than in the truck itself, so we bounce up and down at the same time, and everybody in the back said that it looks like we're just faking it.
Nice.
And I mean, as we were driving through all the back roads of Belgium, it feels like, I mean, it's kind of special. Belgium is a very nice place. It feels like it hasn't developed anything since the medieval time, which is probably true for absolutely everything in Belgium. But I mean, you see a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally see by a regular car. There were one time, this is a bad example for what I just said, but one time we came around a corner and we saw a huge tower in the distance. Like imagine like a very large monolith. And I say to my friend like, "Hey, what's that?" And he says, "It's a tower." And I said, "Well, duh. I see it's a tower, but what kind of tower is it?" And he's like, "It looks like the Waterloo Memorial." And just a few minutes later, we passed a sign that says Waterloo.
Wow.
So we actually drove just past the battlefields of Waterloo, which was really cool. We didn't stop to look at it, sadly.
That's really cool. It must be really neat to do something history related, like reenactment in a place with so much history.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's
d-
fascinating.
it's really cool. I'm glad you get to do that.
It's a unique experience for sure.
It sounds so fun. It really sounds so fun. What was the best part for you? Was it the French fries?
I mean, the French fries we made in the back of our truck on the last evening of the event was the best fries we've ever had. Can be related to 6 days of crap food, but they were good, really good. We fill a mess tin with oil and we boil it on a UVL stove. The stoves ran out of fuel really quick, so we had two stoves. We used one cooled down and got refilled as we used the other one. And we had a small basket, like a steel basket, that we cut the potatoes and had them up in the basket. We lowered it into the oil, then took it out to dry them, and then we lowered them another time to get crispy fries. And I mean, they were seriously good, and people were like, "What's going on? Are you guys seriously making fries in a mess tin?" And we're like,
How did
"Yeah."
you have a steel basket? How did you have like a French fry basket that fits in a mess kit?
This is probably borderline Farby, but I mean, French fries aren't really a new invention.
No, I
Um,
get that, but like
you
somebody brought the French fry basket?
you know those restaurants that has like miniature frying baskets for serving purposes?
Uh-huh.
We used one of those.
Yeah, but somebody had brought that.
I brought that.
That's great. I
Don't
love
shoot
it.
me, authenticity officer. Uh,
I love it. That's great.
and remember, Jesse came up and he's like, "Wow, you seriously made it!"
Yeah, I love it.
And everybody just came up and they were so flabbergasted because several people said that's like the one thing they thought they would never see at an event.
That's cool. I'm glad you were able to. Look. No one else has ever done it before. Sometimes I feel like everything in reenactment has been done and there's nothing left to do. But you're out there pioneering, and I don't know. Maybe I'll have to one up you. And I mean, look, tacos existed prior to and during World War II.
Yeah, we thought the next step would be either donuts or onion rings.
I love it. I love that idea. I love the idea of donuts. I mean,
uh,
German soldiers were familiar with the pastry items that were like donuts.
yeah, exactly. It's not far fetched.
No, it isn't. That's really cool.
But the incredible thing is, we had a Swiss person cutting the fries, plucked by an American on a Belgian field, and it was fried by two Norwegians, and it was spiced up with the homemade spice mix of the Swiss person, which were fantastic. The Swiss person was Theory, who you have met.
Cool. I'm glad that you were able to get people from all the different, so many different nations of Earth to come together to make French fries at a World War II reenactment.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's a real multinational achievement. I mean, just think, it was only 80 years ago that some of these countries were at war with each other, and now the citizens of all of these respective places can pretend to be at war and make French fries in peace together.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Another thing, we did a drive-by shooting on the American camp. And as I say that, several people are going to go like, what? You did what? Farbs? But apparently the 2nd Panzer Division actually did that from their trucks, did a drive-by shooting on an American 2nd Armored Camp at the same place. So we did the same thing.
That's really amazing.
It was horrible. It was authentic, I guess. I mean, it didn't feel right at all.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I've done a lot of stuff in vehicles over time that maybe didn't feel very real. Even if it was technically not maybe actually wrong. So I know what you're saying.
Yeah. But another time, we're going to have it. I think it was the last public battle. And it was really set up to be maybe the worst public battle. But as the squad leaders were sent out to do a little bit of reconnaissance of how the battle was going to go, because it's pretty much scripted, they said that the lieutenant said that we're supposed to have an ambush on a side road away from the public battle. We're going to ambush a small recon convoy. Does anybody volunteer for that? And I'm like, my squad does that, thank you. So instead of being in a field getting shot at by Americans walking in a field, we went off to a side road with our truck, parked our truck, went down the road, which was like an old dirt road, which had like cornfields up on the side, like maybe 2 meters edge on the side, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And we set up our machine gun like right next to a corner or a curve, so it looked straight down the road. We camouflaged it. Then we walked 3 or 4 men on either side. I had a smoke grenade and a explosion grenade. And just as we were done setting up, like immediately as we're done setting up, we can hear the engines coming. And I'm like, shit, they're coming. And I could see like the first Jeep coming around the curve, so I duck. Everybody else has ducked. And you hear several other vehicles. And my heart is pumping so hard that I was afraid it was going to give away our position.
Wow.
So I ignite the smoke grenade and I just chuck it as stealthily as possible. But just as I raised my arm to throw it at the convoy, you can hear them speeding up as if they were anticipating us. But then the MG opens fire and the entire column stops and everybody pops up and starts shooting at the column. And suddenly we have 6 Jeeps where people are just laying in their seats dead. And I'm like, shit, we did it. We found the American reenactors to take their hits.
Awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, I sent you a photo of me smiling too much, running away from that convoy. But the thing was that as soon as we were going to drive away with the truck, we were surrounded. We drove down the main road, but suddenly there were like 2 M8 Greyhounds standing there shooting down the field at our friendly positions. So we kind of just slowly reversed away. Tried to find another way around, but we couldn't. So we drove up to see if the Greyhounds had gone. But suddenly there were people aiming guns at us. So we started reversing even quicker, which is a challenge. But and they started shooting at us, but we didn't take our hits because we're invincible. Yeah, we didn't get any further really, so we just got killed as we dismounted.
Well, that's probably how, unfortunately, probably how it was for a lot of.
Yeah. We actually talked to those Americans who shot at us, and they were real Americans. And they were like, nah, dude, it was so weird to see that yellow Opel Blitz come down the road. We're like, what is that doing there? Is that the Germans? So we aimed our guns at you, and then you started backing away, and we were like, shit, it's them, shoot. So we started shooting. So, I mean, they loved it. They said that was the best thing that had happened during the event.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm jealous. I went to a reenactment the weekend before last, but it was not like, it wasn't a 2-week odyssey of any kind. I was there for a day and a half or something like that. Um, but it was fun. It was actually the reenactment that I went to was in Stamford, Vermont, and it was an Eastern Front tactical event that is put on by an organization called the Living History Organization. And they have like sections of this organization that represent all different eras of humankind that people reenact. And this event, I guess it's been going on for a few years. I've been to all of them. And it's a really cool site. It's a Polish Boy Scout camp. So it's got only a very few buildings on there. And because it's for people from Poland, it's got even the small buildings have kind of like a European look. The signs are in Polish for the most part, or Polish and English. So it's like a lot of forests. There's dirt roads, and it's a really cool event. Like I say, I've been to all of them that they have, and I always have a good time. This was the first reenactment. This was the first overnight reenactment that wasn't in a building that I had been to since October of last year, which is probably about as long as I've gone without sleeping in a Zeltbahn tent for, I don't know, 15 years, more than 15 years maybe. So it felt really good to be back. It felt really good to kind of break that long dry spell that I had and get out there and set up the tent, sleep in the tent with my friends. And we had some Zoni experiences. It was a good time. I think for me, one of the highlights of the event was that there's a local unit here that has started to do like cooking, but instead of doing like a field kitchen, they don't have a field kitchen. They have a cantina wagon. So they basically have this like kind of like a restaurant on like a trailer. And this is a pre-World War II thing. I think it's a real German trailer, actually. It has like a wood stove in there. And they served traditional German food that you could buy. You pay for it and get this food. And it was like a really kind of a cool sort of cultural aspect to it, where I feel like, I mean, the food was delicious. For people who are familiar with German food, this was familiar stuff. There was stuffed cabbage, kohlrouladen. There was like a sort of a farmer's breakfast thing in the morning with potatoes and eggs. There was some different types of baked goods made with wartime or pre-war German recipes. So that was really fun, delicious. It was my first time eating food in the field that was like this like home cooked German food that like during the battle part of it, we sent one man with a mess kit back to pick up lunch. And he came back with a mess kit full of kohlrouladen and bread that we shared together. It was fantastic.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. And we spent 2 nights there. So 2 nights in the Zeltbahn tent. It was the 8-man tent. And the weather was so nice. Not a drop of rain fell on this event, which was such a relief, because like 2017 and 2018, it felt like all the events that I was going to were like heavy rains. And so to do this event that had not a drop of rain, where we didn't have to worry about sealing up the tent. I mean, we didn't even close up the tent at all. It was practically like sleeping totally under the stars. We had the whole front open.
That's awesome. Those are the best nights.
That's such a good night. Both nights, fresh air. I brought a bale of straw that we used for bedding, which sometimes at this particular event, I haven't brought any straw because the ground sort of comfortable enough on its own. But I did bring a bale of straw to share. And so we all had some cushy straw to sleep on. And I just brought one blanket, and that was perfect. Everything about the event was really nice. I will say Saturday night, there was like a partisan unit that was there, and they approached us with an idea to do like an immersive sort of a scenario where they were going to come hunting for us, or we would go hunting for them. But I looked at the guys in my group, and I thought about it, and I didn't have the energy for it. And the guys in my group didn't really seem to want to do it either, and which is unusual because look, I mean, we're there to reenact World War II. I mean, we went to this reenactment to do stuff. Um, but after the day's battle and everything that had happened, I just kind of wanted to just enjoy being outside and being in the forest in my uniform with my friends. And so we went over to the Russian camp and kind of had sort of like a reenactor roundtable discussion. I don't think I've ever really done anything like this at an event before, where there were people from all of the different units at the event, kind of came together underneath a sort of a I don't know, like a fly tent that the Russians have, and they have some tables, and no one was like getting drunk or really partying, but people were just talking about reenacting, how it's changing, what's where the numbers are, like what kind of events are going to be happening in the future in our region. And it felt really positive because these are a lot of they're people that I reenact with, and I talk to these people on Facebook a lot, and we talk on about reenacting and these kind of subjects. But to be able to kind of do it in real time, in real life, where you're talking face to face, I think it was productive. Ultimately, I think I made the best use of my time. And I'm excited to say I'm going to be at a reenactment next weekend, which is a public display. In 3 weeks, there's another Eastern Front Tactical here in Massachusetts, where I live, that is always one of my favorite events every year. So, and then in December, I'm doing an event in Fort Mifflin in Pennsylvania. That one's a public display. So, if you're hearing this before December, um, and you're anywhere near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, come check out our display at the Fort Mifflin World War II weekend.
I would do that if I was close.
I wish you could. Maybe someday you could come to this, because the more I learn about this event, it sounds like it would be possible maybe for this Fort Mifflin event to be a little bit bigger than it was. And you and I met at a reenactment in Pennsylvania, the Fort Indiantown Gap Battle of the Bulge event that doesn't happen anymore. And we don't really have a replacement for that event right now. But this Fort Mifflin is an old military fort, and it has plenty of indoor lodging, and it's an event that happens in the winter. And there's quite a few units that go, and I think maybe it could be even a little bigger than it is now. I think it's an event that could grow, and I think it might be possible for the event to be like a little bit longer. Like right now, it's basically just Saturday. You can arrive on Friday, but I think it would be possible maybe to expand this event, maybe get there a little bit earlier. So I don't know, maybe someday it might be an event that would be worth coming to, even for someone coming from Europe. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
It would be cool to see you again. It would be cool to have an event again that I could tell somebody it's worth, it's worth $1,000 and a week of your time or whatever to come to this thing. Right now, there are no events that I do that I would think somebody from Norway would find it worthwhile to come to. But hopefully sometime down the road.
Yeah, we can all hope for it.
You never know what's right around the corner.
Yeah. But you said you were doing an Eastern Front event in 3 weeks?
Yeah, the event that I'm doing in 3 weeks is in Haydenville, Massachusetts. And it's going to be the 15th annual Eastern Front tactical event in Haydenville, Mass. The landowner is incredibly supportive of us. He's a really great guy. He loves what we do there. It's private property. It's a totally private event. It's run by the Soviet 26th Rifle Division that I'm a member of, and it's a great site. It's just a great time of year in Massachusetts. New England is so beautiful in the fall, in October specifically. The leaves will all be beautiful colors. The forest is just full of beautiful colors, and the Soviet and partisan units that attend this event are really serious and authenticity driven people who take this stuff very seriously. And generally speaking, for the Germans, it's the same. So it's always a an immersive experience. It's not perfect. Like there are some aspects of the way it is, like it's a very hilly site, and when there have been rains, parts of it can become muddy. There's really only one area that's kind of like dry enough to have sort of camps, and that area is within sight of the road, and it's also within sight of where you park your cars. And the camp, like the Soviet and German camps, are within sight of each other. So these aspects of it are not ideal, but the property and the area that we have to use is huge. So if you want to get out there and do observation positions, or do patrols, or just go somewhere else and be somewhere else and enjoy being just with your unit, or even if you just wanted to be just by yourself, there's tons of opportunities to do that. So I feel really lucky to have an opportunity to reenact at that place. And something new this year that I'm really excited about is the Soviet unit that I'm in, and with some help from my German unit, have built a like a sort of a underground place there where you can sleep. It's like a bunker. I wouldn't really call it a bunker. It's sort of built on this idea of a Zemlyanka, which is in Russia or in Eastern Europe. It's like I don't know, like sort of like a root cellar, or maybe they were made to be accommodations, but it's basically like an underground little cabin with bunks in it and a wood stove. So we're going to have more events there hopefully soon. I'll probably be doing an event there as Soviet, where we'll be in there in the wintertime, and I'm really looking forward to that very much too.
Nice. Are you going as a Kami or a Nazi?
For this Haydenville, it's a really important event for me, so I'll be going there with Sick Rings Regiment 195. But hopefully after that, like I say, we'll probably do my Russian unit, my Soviet unit will have an immersion event there, and just maybe live the life for a weekend. You know, no Germans, just use the Zemlyanka that we've built and do some patrols. Just be out there and maybe do some training. I certainly could use some. So that'll be really nice.
Very cool. You need to tell us more about it when it happens.
I can't wait. Yeah, I certainly will. Other than that, I've been really busy with my own reenactment projects, working on some paperwork stuff. I like to fill out reproduction documents for reenactors, and my own personal paperwork has become kind of outdated because I haven't worked on it in a long time, and I'm getting older. My current personal paperwork lists me as being born in 1907. But the reality is that I'm going to be turning 40 very soon. And so I think it's time for me to make some new paperwork for myself with an earlier birth year. I'll probably go with like 1897. And so that way, and I'll have to come up with kind of a little bit, some changes in my backstory. I'll have to include something about what I was doing during World War One. And so that's going to be a fun project for me for the wintertime to recreate all of that stuff.
You'd only be like 15 during World War One, though.
If I was born in, sure, you know, if I was born in 1897, I would be, what, 20 years old in 1917?
Yeah,
so.
I suppose you would have served.
Well, see, I don't, you know, I know some things about World War One. I'm interested in World War One, and I've read a number of books about it. But I'm not really like a amateur World War One historian, and I also am not really interested too much in the idea of doing like a real deep dive on like details of World War One unit structure to the extent that I would be able to speak about World War One as if I had really lived it. So, but on the other hand, you know, I don't know if I can really get around the fact that I would have been of the age where I either have to come up with something that I did in World War One, or come up with some way that some reason why I was exempt from war service. And Ben, our friend Ben, actually suggested that an idea might be to be someone who like got involved near the very beginning of World War One and was captured, taken prisoner like almost immediately, and spent the war in a prisoner of war camp. And I think that is something that I could learn enough about that I could talk about it in a way that would be convincing.
Yeah, I've heard stories of like early teenagers saying they were older and going to war.
Well, like I might have to look at it, but like let's say, so let's say I was 18 years old in 1914, so maybe my birth year would be 1896. And let's just say, for sake of argument, I enlisted right away out of a patriotic fervor, and after basic training was sent to wherever, and then was captured after a week at the front. And I'm sure that was a thing that happened. I mean, I'm sure that that was an experience that, I mean, there must have been German soldiers who were taken prisoner in, say, September 1914 and spent the next 4+ years in a camp in France. So I don't know. Yeah, it's something for me to learn about. Definitely something I need to do research on, but I think it might be easier for me to be able to incorporate that kind of detail convincingly into my impression rather than come up with some reason why, as a young man in wartime, World War I time Germany, I didn't fight in battles or whatever.
Yeah,
that's going to be one of my wintertime projects here at home. But I guess on that note, we're probably out of time. I think we've blown by our usual. I want to destroy our listeners here with piling it on and on. I hope you are doing well. Until the next time we talk, to you and to everybody else, have a great night, and I'll see you in the field.
See you in the field, Chris.